Why 1,000 people vanished in the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon. It's a wound in the earth that stretches for 277 miles, a masterpiece of geological time that's a mile deep and up to 18 miles wide. Every year, millions of people stand on its rim, just staring into this breathtaking, silent space. They come to see the beauty, to feel small, to hike the trails, and to raft that powerful river. But the Grand Canyon has two faces. For every moment of awe it gives you, there's a shadow of danger right behind it. It's a place that doesn't just ask for respect, it demands it. And for those who don't listen, or for some who are just in the wrong place at the wrong time, the canyon can become a tomb. Over the years, thousands of people have been reported missing in the Grand Canyon, and some say they never truly left. What if the very rocks of this natural wonder are holding the echoes of its darkest secrets? We're about to explore the chilling hauntings linked to the park's most mysterious true crime cases and the restless spirits they left behind. Section 1. The Canyon of Lost Souls. The numbers themselves are pretty staggering. The Grand Canyon gets more missing persons reports than any other national park in the United States. Since they started keeping records, there have been thousands of official reports filed. Just between 2018 and early 2023, over 1,100 missing person reports were filed here. Now, to be clear, the vast majority of these cases are resolved. Lost hikers get found, people are located safely, and the search is called off. But a handful of cases every year stay open. They become ghosts in the system, names on a list that just end with a question mark. People who walked into the canyon's maze and were just swallowed whole. On a practical level, it's easy to see how it happens. The park is over 1.2 million acres of rugged, tricky terrain. A hiker can step off a trail for a second and get completely turned around. The cliffs are so steep that one wrong step is all it takes. The weather can flip in an instant. In the summer, the inner canyon can hit lethal temperatures, while winter storms can dump feet of snow on the rim, trapping anyone unprepared. Rescuers have an almost impossible job. A search area of just a few square miles can contain a vertical mile of ledges, caves, and crevices. In fact, the park's search and rescue operation is so demanding that it's one of the few national parks to have its own dedicated helicopter on standby year-round. On average, about 12 people die in the canyon each year, from heat stroke, falls, drowning in the Colorado River, or from causes that are never figured out. But these logical explanations, as true as they are, don't quite get rid of that deep unease the canyon gives you. They don't explain the weird details in so many of these cases, the bizarre choices made by experienced hikers, or the chilling discovery of a campsite left perfectly set up, as if the owners just vanished into thin air. And they definitely don't explain the stories. The whispers of phantom figures on lonely trails, the sound of weeping on the wind when no one's there, and that feeling, reported by so many visitors, of being watched by unseen eyes. For some, the canyon isn't just a passive backdrop for tragedy, it's an active participant. An ancient, powerful place with a spirit of its own, and sometimes that spirit is hungry. To understand this other side of the canyon, we have to look at the stories of those who vanished, cases where the line between true crime and the paranormal gets hopelessly blurred. Our first story is maybe the most iconic, a legend that started with a honeymoon and ended in mystery. Section 2. The Honeymooners' Ghost, Glenn and Bessie Hyde. Back in the winter of 1928, a young, ambitious couple set out to make history. Glenn Hyde, a 29-year-old farmer from Idaho, was a tough outdoorsman who knew his way around wild rivers. His new wife, Bessie, a 22-year-old artist and poet from the city, shared his thirst for adventure. For their honeymoon, they planned something incredibly daring, a rafting trip down the entire Green and Colorado rivers, right through the Grand Canyon. Glenn wanted to set a new speed record, but even more, if they made it, Bessie would be the first woman ever to run the canyon's rapids. They thought the trip would make them famous and rich, giving them a life way bigger than the one they had. They built their own boat, a 20-foot wooden scow they named Rain in the Face, and took off in October 1928. They didn't wear life jackets, which was pretty common back then, and just trusted in Glenn's skill and their own youthful confidence. For weeks, everything went fine. They made stops, met other river runners, and Bessie kept a diary. But as they went on, signs of trouble started to show. On November 16th, the couple hiked out of the canyon to get supplies and stopped at the Kolb Brothers studio on the South Rim. Emery Kolb, a famous canyon photographer, later said he had a worrying chat with Bessie. He claimed she told him she was getting sick of the tough journey and of Glenn pushing her so hard. She just wanted to go home. Kolb noticed that Glenn seemed annoyed by his wife's complaints and turned down his offer to let them rest for a few days, or even for the winter. Still, they posed for a picture, a final, haunting image of the two of them together, before heading back down to the river. They were last seen by another person on Sunday, November 18, 1928, as they pushed their scow off the shore below Hermit Rapid and floated away downriver. Days passed, then weeks. Back in Idaho, Glenn's father, R.C. Hyde, started to worry. The couple was supposed to be done by early December. When they didn't show up, he launched a massive search, one of the first major search and rescue operations in the canyon's history. Planes flew over the gorge, and search parties on foot scoured the riverbanks. They found nothing. Then, on December 19th, a search plane spotted it. About 140 miles downriver from where they were last seen, their scow was caught in the current near River Mile 237. It was perfectly upright and undamaged. All their supplies were still neatly packed and tied down. Their camera was there. Bessie's journal was found tucked away, its last entry dated November 30th. The boat was in such good shape, it seemed impossible it had flipped in a big rapid. But Glenn and Bessie Hyde were gone. It was as if they were just living their adventure one moment and simply vanished the next. The official theory has always been accidental drowning. Maybe they were trying to guide the boat through a rough patch, or a freak wave in a small rapid knocked them both out at the same time. Without life jackets in that freezing, powerful water, they wouldn't have stood a chance. Their bodies, it's assumed, were just claimed by the river, never to be seen again. But the perfect condition of the boat left a seed of doubt, and from that uncertainty, darker theories started to grow. Did Bessie finally snap? Did her wanting to end the trip and Glenn's refusal lead to a fight? Did she murder him, hike out of the canyon, and start a new life? This theory got a shocking boost in 1971. During a commercial rafting trip, an elderly woman around a campfire stunned everyone by announcing she was Bessie Hyde. She claimed she had stabbed her abusive husband, thrown his body in the river, and escaped. It was a sensational story, but that's all it was. The woman later took it back. Then, when the famous female river runner Georgie Clark died in 1992, investigators found a pistol and some documents that made people wonder if she was secretly Bessie Hyde, but nothing conclusive was ever found. Another theory pointed the finger at someone else. In 1976, the skeleton of a man with a bullet hole in his skull was found on the property of Emery Kolb, the photographer who took their last picture. People immediately suspected Kolb. Had he become obsessed with Bessie, killed Glenn in a jealous rage, and hidden the body? It was a juicy theory, but forensics later proved the skeleton belonged to a man who died no earlier than 1972, ruling out Glenn Hyde. To this day, what happened to Glenn and Bessie Hyde is one of the Grand Canyon's greatest true crime mysteries. They came looking for fame, and in a tragic way, they found it. Their story became a cornerstone of canyon lore, a chilling reminder of how fast a dream can become a nightmare. Some river guides say that on quiet nights, in the part of the canyon where the Hydes vanished, you can sometimes see the faint figures of a man and a woman on the riverbank, forever looking for their lost boat, or maybe just a way to finish their journey. Section 3. The Wailing Woman of the North Rim. While the Hyde story is tied to a specific time and place, some of the canyon's hauntings are more elemental, almost like they represent the combined grief of countless tragedies. There's no spirit more famous or more sad than the Wailing Woman of the North Rim. For almost 100 years, visitors and staff at the historic Grand Canyon Lodge and the nearby Transept Trail have reported running into a ghostly figure. The stories always describe a woman in a white dress, sometimes with blue flowers on it or a blue scarf. She appears on stormy nights, a translucent figure drifting between the trees, her face a mask of pure sorrow. And then there's the sound that gives her the name, a heartbreaking cry that echoes through the pines, a wail of anguish that seems to come from the canyon itself. The legend behind the Wailing Woman is basically the park's most common tragedy rolled into one story. The tale goes that many years ago, a family was staying at the lodge. The husband and their young son went for a hike on the Transept Trail, a beautiful path that runs along the canyon's edge. A sudden, violent storm rolled in, which is common on the high-altitude North Rim. In the blinding rain and wind, the father and son lost their footing on the slick rock and fell to their deaths. When they didn't come back, the wife and mother was hit with a grief so deep it broke her. For days, she roamed the trail, calling their names, her white dress getting tattered and torn. Finally, unable to take the loss, she went back to her room at the lodge and took her own life, hoping to join her family. But according to the legend, her spirit found no peace. It's still tied to the place of her greatest sorrow, forever searching for her lost husband and son. Hikers on the trail at night report hearing her sobs on the wind, while guests at the lodge have seen her fleeting image in hallways or had their room doors slammed shut by an unseen, grieving hand. The story really took hold in 1932 when the original Grand Canyon Lodge burned to the ground. As the building was consumed by flames, several witnesses swore they saw the clear image of a woman's face in the fire, her expression one of eternal agony, a final, terrifying confirmation that her spirit was still there. What makes the tale of the Wailing Woman so powerful is that it could be about anyone. Unlike the Hydes, she isn't tied to one documented case. Instead, she's the embodiment of every family torn apart by an accident in the canyon. She's a stand-in for the hundreds of fatal falls, the hikers lost to the weather, and the loved ones left behind to deal with a loss as huge as the canyon itself. Her story is also strikingly similar to the Hispanic legend of La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, a famous tale in the American Southwest. In that story, a woman drowns her own children and is cursed to wander the waterways forever, crying, "Mis hijos, my children." It's possible the Grand Canyon's legend is a local version of this older folklore, adapted for the specific dangers of the park. Whether she is a unique ghost or the canyon's version of La Llorona, the Wailing Woman serves as a chilling symbol of the park's hidden pain. Her cries aren't just one woman's grief, but the collective sorrow of everyone lost to the canyon's depths. Section 4. The Vanished Guide, Morgenheimer. The mysteries of the Grand Canyon aren't just things of the past. They're still happening, a cold reminder that even with GPS and modern search tech, to vanish in the canyon is to vanish completely. No case shows this more clearly than the disappearance of Morgenheimer. In June of 2015, Morgenheimer was living his dream. The 22-year-old from Wyoming was an experienced rafter and a passionate outdoorsman. He had just landed his dream job as a commercial river guide, leading multi-day trips down the Colorado River. On June 2nd, the group was on day 6 of an 8-day trip. They were deep in the canyon, near a spot called Pumpkin Springs at River Mile 213. In the late afternoon, around 4 p.m., the group was relaxing by the river. Morgan told the lead guide he was going to take a short break. The lead guide turned away to talk to a client for just a moment. When he turned back, Morgenheimer was gone. At first, nobody was worried. They figured he had just wandered off to find a private spot to chill, something guides do all the time. He was an expert. He knew the canyon, and he was last seen wearing a life jacket. But when it was time for dinner and Morgan didn't show, a feeling of unease started to set in. The group started a search, calling his name, checking the area. They found nothing. No footprints, no sign of a struggle, nothing to show where he might have gone. That evening, they used a satellite phone to report him missing. The National Park Service launched a massive search. A helicopter searched from the air while ground teams combed the riverbanks. Investigators were brought in, and all other river trips were told to be on the lookout. The search was intense and lasted for 6 grueling days. They focused on the area around Pumpkin Springs, a section of canyon walled in by high cliffs, figuring he couldn't have gone far. They found absolutely nothing. Not his brightly colored shorts, not his Chaco sandals, not the purple water bottle he was carrying. It was as if Morgenheimer, an experienced guide who was totally in his element, had just stepped out of existence. The official search was eventually scaled back, meaning they would only resume if new clues popped up. None ever have. The case is still open, just another name on the long list of the canyon's vanished. There are theories, of course, but none of them feel right. Did he have a sudden medical emergency? It's possible, but unlikely for a healthy 22-year-old. Did he fall in the river and drown? This is the most common theory, but it's hard to square with the facts. He was last seen in a calm stretch of water, wearing a life vest. If he had drowned, his body or some of his gear probably would have been found downriver by one of the dozens of trips that passed through in the following weeks. Could he have decided to just hike out of the canyon? This seems almost impossible. He was in one of the most remote and rugged sections of the entire park, with no trail out. Trying to climb the sheer cliffs would have been suicide, and a search of the area found no proof he even tried. His family and friends said he was a passionate and careful guide, not someone who would take a reckless risk like that. The disappearance of Morgenheimer is a deeply modern mystery. It proves that the Grand Canyon's power to make people disappear hasn't been weakened by time or technology. He wasn't some tourist from 100 years ago. He was a trained professional who knew the risks better than almost anyone. And yet, in the blink of an eye, he was gone. There's no ghost story attached to his case, no spectral figure seen on the riverbank. The haunting here is the silence itself. It's the gaping hole of that unanswered question. How can a person, so full of life and expertise, simply cease to be? The questions surrounding cases like Morgenheimer's are what draws so many of us to these mysteries. We look for answers, for patterns, for anything that can explain the unexplainable. If you find this search as compelling as we do, consider subscribing to the channel. We dive into these dark corners of history and the unknown every week, because we believe every story, especially those of the missing, deserves to be told. Section 5. The Phantoms of Phantom Ranch. At the very bottom of the Grand Canyon, tucked into a grove of cottonwood trees, is a place steeped in legend, Phantom Ranch. You can only get there by a tough hike, a mule ride, or by rafting the river, and it's a remote oasis for tired travelers. But its name, as it turns out, is no accident. The ranch and the area around it are considered by many to be one of the most paranormally active spots in the entire park. The name itself has a spooky origin. Before the lodge was built in 1922, prospectors used to hang around the area. One of them, a guy named John Shane, was killed at the mouth of a side canyon when a huge boulder fell from a cliff and crushed him. After that, other prospectors reported seeing a strange, glowing light hovering on the canyon wall where he died. They thought it was his ghost and started calling the stream Phantom Creek. When architect Mary Coulter designed the ranch, she leaned into the lore and named the new lodge Phantom Ranch. But Shane's phantom light was just the beginning. Over the decades, the ranch has collected a ton of ghost stories. One of the most famous spirits is said to be that of Rhys Griffiths. Griffiths was on the crew that built the North Kaibab Trail, the path that leads down to Phantom Ranch. He loved the canyon. After he died, he was buried right next to the trail he helped build. Since then, hikers and ranch staff have reported seeing a ghostly figure near his gravesite. Others have seen a strange, hovering light above his grave, eerily similar to the one that gave Phantom Creek its name. The main lodge and cabins are also paranormal hotspots. One well-known story is about a red-headed woman who sometimes appears to visitors near the ranch. She seems distressed, telling people, "I don't know how to get out of here," before just vanishing. Another, more tragic tale is about a young bride who was supposedly left at the altar. Heartbroken, she is said to have wandered into the wilderness after her fiancé and was never seen again. Her spirit, dressed in white, is now reportedly seen wandering the ranch grounds late at night, with some guests hearing the faint sound of sobs. It's as if the location itself, a rare spot of life in the harsh inner canyon, acts as a magnet for the lingering energy of those who have died there. Building the trails and the ranch was dangerous work, and the history of the place is full of tragedy. The ghosts of Phantom Ranch might not be tied to one big unsolved crime, but to the accumulated weight of a century of accidents and sorrow. Each story adds another layer to the eerie reputation of this isolated outpost, a place where the living and the dead seem to share space in the deep, silent heart of the canyon. Section 6. The Enigma of Floyd Roberts. Sometimes, the horror of a disappearance isn't about ghosts, but about the chillingly strange decisions that lead up to it. The case of Floyd E. Roberts III is a haunting example of how the canyon's extreme environment can seem to mess with a person's judgment, creating a mystery that's as much psychological as it is physical. On June 17, 2016, Floyd Roberts, a 52-year-old former NASA employee and teacher from Florida, started a 9-day backpacking trip in a remote part of the park. He wasn't a beginner. Roberts was an experienced hiker who had been to the Grand Canyon many times. With him were his best friend of over 40 years, Ned Bryant, and Ned's daughter, Madeline, who were both also highly experienced hikers. The three of them were well prepared for a tough journey. On the very first day, late in the afternoon, the group was hiking across the Shivwitz Plateau during an excessive heat warning. They came to a small hill, and it was here that a decision was made that is still baffling. Ned and Madeline decided to go up and over the hill. Floyd, for some unknown reason, chose to go around it, planning to meet them on the other side. The friends split up. It was the last time anyone would see Floyd Roberts. When Floyd didn't show up at the meeting spot, the Bryants weren't panicked right away. They doubled back, calling his name, but found nothing. They made camp, hoping he'd turn up. When he was still gone in the morning, they hiked to an area with cell service and called for help. A 6-day search was launched with helicopters, dog teams, and ground crews, covering a 10-square-mile area. They found a set of footprints that might have been his, but they couldn't be sure. Despite the massive effort, they found nothing else. No backpack, no clothing, nothing. Floyd Roberts, a man with 2 gallons of water and a week's worth of food, had vanished. What makes this case so unsettling is the question why. Why did an experienced hiker, with his trusted friends, decide to split from the group in such a dangerous area, especially during extreme heat? It goes against one of the most basic rules of backcountry safety. His friends were stunned. In a message to his wife, Ned Bryant wrote, "I am very worried. Everything was going perfectly until we split up." There are no ghosts in the story of Floyd Roberts, no tales of phantom lights. The haunting here is the decision itself. It has led people to wonder if the canyon can have a disorienting, almost sinister effect on the human mind. Could the oppressive heat and the vast, confusing landscape have caused a moment of profound confusion? Did Floyd, in that moment, lose his bearings not just physically, but mentally? It's a terrifying thought that the canyon doesn't just pose physical dangers, but can actively mess with your head, leading you to make a fatal, unexplainable choice. He remains missing, his fate a chilling testament to the subtle, psychological dangers that hide within the canyon's beautiful, silent walls. Section 7. The Sacred Earth. These modern stories of disappearances and hauntings, as creepy as they are just the latest chapter in the canyon's long spiritual history. For thousands of years, long before it was a national park, this land was, and still is, a sacred home to numerous Native American tribes. Their beliefs offer a deeper, more ancient way to understand the strange energy that so many people feel here. For the Hopi people, who have lived in the region for over 1,000 years, the Grand Canyon, is where their world began. They believe humanity emerged from a prior world into this one through an opening in the canyon called the Sipapuni. It's not just their origin point, it's also their final spiritual home. When a Hopi person passes away, their spirit is believed to travel back to the Grand Canyon, to the spot where the Colorado and Little Colorado rivers meet. From there, the spirits travel the world as clouds. For the Hopi, the clouds you see in the sky are the spirits of their ancestors watching over them. The Havasupai, the people of the blue-green water, have lived inside the canyon itself for centuries. The Zuni people also see the canyon as their place of origin. For these and other tribes, the Grand Canyon isn't just a landscape. It's a living, breathing spiritual entity. Its springs are sacred, its peaks are home to gods, and its sheer size is a place of immense power. From this point of view, the spirits and strange things reported by modern visitors aren't new. They're just the latest interpretation of a power that has always been here. The land itself has a memory. The echoes of the 1,000+ who have been reported missing are just the newest voices in a chorus that's been singing for millennia. Maybe the wailing woman isn't just the ghost of a grieving mother, but an expression of the land's own sorrow. Maybe the mysterious force that seems to grab people isn't a curse, but the untamable spirit of a place that will never be fully conquered by man. From the tragic honeymoon of Glenn and Bessie Hyde to the modern mystery of Morgenheimer, the Grand Canyon has proven that it knows how to keep a secret. It's a labyrinth of stone and silence that has been the site of thousands of missing person reports, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and chilling legends. Are these stories just the product of human grief and imagination, our way of trying to make sense of the senseless? Are the ghosts of Phantom Ranch and the Wailing Woman just campfire tales born from the natural creaks and moans of a huge wilderness? Or has the sheer weight of all this tragedy left a real psychic stain on the landscape? Is it just the harsh environment that claims these lives? Or is there something more going on, an ancient energy that sometimes reaches out from the shadows? The Grand Canyon will always be a place of two halves, breathtaking beauty and unimaginable danger, a geological wonder and a potential tomb. The spirits of those who vanished may be nothing more than memories. Their stories cautionary tales we tell ourselves in the face of nature's awesome power. Or maybe, just maybe, they're still there, wandering the rims, floating on the river's current, their whispers carried on the same wind that carved this immense, magnificent, and terrifying place. They wait, perhaps, for their stories to be told, for their final mystery to finally be solved. What do you think happened to Glenn and Bessie Hyde? Have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain in a national park? Share your theories and stories in the comments below.